Hi, this is Suzette the Marriage Warrior, and today we're going to address a pretty tough subject, which is how to tell if your marriage is starting to fall apart. You know, you may be in your head about this and you may be wondering, am I right? Is it really struggling as much as I think, or am I overreacting? Well, probably if you're picking up the energies that you're picking up to even ask the question, you probably are right. Something's going on that is pretty serious and you just may not want to face it. You know, it's very daunting to think about your marriage may not be on stable ground, but my advice to you is to take charge and take action sooner rather than later, because sometimes if we're just questioning these things and wonder if we're in our head about it, you may just push it under the rug, or you may try to address your partner and they push it under the rug because no one wants to confront such a heavy question. But if you wait too long, the toxicity could get even worse. So here's some of the signs that you can look for if in fact your marriage may be really struggling in a way that could make it crumble. First of all, if the arguing has kind of stopped, like you're not throwing things at each other anymore and you've just kind of moved to your own corners, but you can feel a tense and a tension in the air. It's a tense energy. Both people are feeling it. So don't think that your other partner is not feeling it, because they are as well. A lot of times the silent treatment games are starting to fade as well, and you're moving into roommate stage. The reason you can tell that it may be crumbling when it's kind of quiet and none of the arguments are going on there, and you just kind of moved into your own sides of the court, is because negative energy is still connection. So when you're fighting about something, even though it may look like Jerry Springer and you hate that part, that kind of dynamic, the pursuer dynamic, still says you care. When you move into a pursuer-distancer dynamic, usually the distancer is telling the pursuer that they don't care, meaning the pursuer cares more about what's going on than the distancer. Oftentimes that's not a true statement, because the distancer is just trying to go into their corner and trying to figure it out or pray about it or whatever. But to the pursuer, it looks like you don't care. It also makes the distancer take control, like you're pulling away. So then therefore you're not addressing the things that are going on, which again make you feel like you're in control, and that you are being able to determine when it's a good time for you to talk about and address the issue, rather than doing it on the pursuer's time. That's how it feels like control to the pursuer. But the actual message you're sending is you don't care. You don't care about how long you're waiting for the pursuer to pursue and talk about the conflict that needs to be resolved. It just makes you feel like you're in more control, and to the pursuer, it looks like you're in control as well. So at some point, the pursuer will stop trying to talk about it. And then oftentimes that'll get the withdrawer to kind of quietly step back in. But by that time, the pursuer is like, I'm not interested in talking about this anymore, because they can feel the control that the withdrawer just administered to the relationship dynamic, and they're over it. They don't want to talk about it. So when y'all get into the circumstance of not talking about it and just moving through the day and going through the motions and picking up the kids from school and going to the, whatever you have to go through during the day, and there's just kind of a lack of connection between you, your marriage is in trouble. How do you get out of this? Well, once it's to that point, it's going to require someone inside of the marriage to say, we need some help. And then that person, or even the other person, may need to actually reach out for help. And sometimes it's waiting for the other one to do it. So getting help is really an important step, but getting the right help is also important, because if you get the wrong help, and what is the wrong help? I mean, the whole entire counseling community is there to assist you. So, but a lot of couples will say it wasn't any help. And so why is that? Well, a lot of the counseling paradigms and models that counselors work with is person-centered or cognitive behavioral. So they stay in the middle as a referee. Well, can you hear what they're saying? Can you hear what they're saying? And there's really no solution-focused type of therapy or coaching for the couple. So it feels like nothing's working. And then you wind up quitting, and then you wind up in the same situation, except with the thought of, that didn't work either. So then that makes you even feel more hopeless of how are we going to fix this? Because getting back to connection when you already have felt the disconnection, because remember, even when you're fighting, you're still connected because you're still fighting and, then drawing to each other and having, make out sessions for making up, and all of that is going on, which means you're still connected. Once you get to the place of disconnection, like you don't even feel vulnerable to say your feelings, and neither does your partner, then your marriage is in a crisis mode, because at that point, all you need is a little bit of time. And when the time, because time does not heal all wounds, when the time continues to click by, the disconnection is just going to make an ocean between you, and you're going to be, ships passing in the night. And then people at that point start thinking about, okay, I don't have to live like this. What would it be like financially if I leave? Or what would it be like if we have to share custody, or somebody decides to go talk with an attorney? And at that point, the ball is rolling. So if you're feeling some of these things in your marriage, you do need to reach out to your partner and say, listen, we need some assistance, and you need to get the right assistance. You'll know pretty quickly if it's the right assistance, because if you have a therapist or a coach that's not giving you a process, not giving you a structure that you need to follow to kind of set y'all in alignment off the bat, while they kind of do the internal work with each of you, you're probably just going to get person-centered therapy. And what you're going to want is, the person's side and that kind of thing. And that person-centered is not going to side, but it's just going to be a referee and not really directional. The other thing is, I would really warn you to, if you have a marital crisis, to not seek out therapy by yourself, because that can be very divisive. Because if you're seeking out therapy and then that person's coming on your side and not really knowing the other person and maybe even judging the other person, it could cause a lot of divisiveness inside of the relationship dynamic, because they may side with you and they may say, okay, yeah, you need to leave, or you don't need to be treated like that, or whatever, and they don't know both sides of the story, which can be very imbalanced and cause a divisiveness. They'll empower you on something that's not going to necessarily make you grow, but rather just help continue to victimize yourself, because a marriage takes two people, and two people need to be willing to confront what the other one is doing. But if you have someone that's silent and not really confronting what's going on, and they're just taking a victim role of, I'm not doing anything wrong, it's you kind of thing, you're going to have trouble being able to work through that. But you have to have two people that are willing to talk and confront the situations and be able to be vulnerable with one another. And if you have a partner that's telling you, not in a gaslighting way of, you do this wrong, but more of, this is how, when you do this, it affects me, then that could actually be very helpful and assist your marriage dynamic. But if you don't, because the silence has gotten too deafening in the marriage, you're going to need some assistance. And I would hope you guys would find the right person. So I hope that helps you today. And I hope you can get through your marital struggle by just facing it, because that's always the hardest step.